to see your children and grandchildren with the eyes that are not just physical, not with the labels that the world has put on them, but with a godly eyesight in saying, God has a purpose and a destiny for my son or daughter. Welcome back to Daily Talks. Today we want to talk about mothers. Mothers. There are mothers in the Bible who give us a good characteristic of how the Holy Spirit ministers to His people. How mothers are comforters, how mothers are like counselors, how mothers can be like advocates. Today I want to share with you 3 mothers from the Bible and give you an understanding of these kinds of mothers who are very much likened to the role of the Holy Spirit. The first mother I want to introduce to you is Hannah. Hannah means favor or grace. Obviously, Hannah is the mother of Samuel, but we all know that she had difficulty in having children. Hannah would go to the tabernacle to pray, and she prayed and prayed and prayed, and the priest Eli thought she was drunk, and so Hannah even got rebuked for praying in such a passionate manner. So we know that the Holy Spirit helps us to pray. The Holy Spirit convicts us, but also motivates us towards prayer. Sometimes you may have prayed for your children or for your parents or for your loved one with such an intensity, with groans that human beings cannot understand. And it was prayers deeply connected to the heart of God. And you may have found out later on that your prayers were very much needed in overcoming some things or the protection of some people. And that was the role that Hannah played. She was contending for childbirth. She was contending for life. She was contending for God's will to be done in her life. She did not give up. She wanted to become a mother. She wanted to continue the family line. She did not give up in her prayer. And I believe that is a very distinguished characteristic of how mothers can be like the Holy Spirit. Holy Spirit does not give up in His role of pointing us to Jesus, of helping us to pray, helping us to receive revelation and understanding. Hannah, although she was rebuked and she was called a drunk, that did not stop her. I believe that's such a wonderful characteristic that we ought to learn from Hannah. Perseverance, patience, persistence. If God has called you to something, then we must persist, we must persevere, and we must continue to be patient and not go off course. We must stay on the narrow path, the straight and narrow. The second mother I want us to be introduced to is the mother of Moses, the mother of Miriam, the mother of Aaron. Her name is Jochebeth, and she had such courage because she was a woman of faith. We know that Jochebeth had an eye for seeing into the spiritual because she saw the baby Moses and knew that he was different. And she had to move by faith rather than just by her plain eyesight. She had a spiritual eyesight in seeing, a spiritual intuition in being able to see that this child needed to have a special destiny. And so she does something that the other mothers would not do. She placed her baby in a basket and let it float down the river Nile. And God was able to save that baby in that basket. Many people have understood the baby inside the basket as a representation of what God did with Noah and his family. God's salvation. And we know the story of how Moses was raised in the palace. Moses did not die on the river. God rescued him through people. Even those who weren't God-fearing, he was still saved. Jochebeth's faith was able to see something spiritual in this particular baby. Do you have those eyes to see your children and grandchildren with the eyes that are not just physical, not with the labels that the world has put on them, but with a godly eyesight in saying, God has a purpose and a destiny for my son or daughter? Not only that, I believe Jochebeth was a woman of faith who was able to obey God's commands, because faith and obedience go hand in hand. Jochebeth's faith led her to obey. Do you know how difficult it would have been to let her own son go? Or even if she waited, the baby would have been killed. But by faith, she had the courage to obey. Thirdly, we want to understand the mother of Jesus, Mary. Mary was able to accept the divine call of God. She was able to carry this baby without having a relationship with a man, because Jesus was conceived by the Holy Spirit. And she was able to say yes to the Lord's invitation, to be invited into the grand narrative of redemption for all humanity. She was able to embrace Jesus. For the 9 months inside the womb and throughout Jesus's birth and growth and maturity, she was able to embrace Jesus and the destiny that God had for him. Through these three mothers, Hannah, Jochebeth, and Mary, we learn the character of the Holy Spirit, who is always with us. He is abiding within. He allows us to see Jesus, and Jesus glorifies the Father. In this day and age where relationships are so shallow, we need to have spiritual mothers who are able to embrace their destinies, their callings, as mothers who intercede and pray and persevere and stay patient, those who will contend and stand in the gap, those who will intercede. And I believe God will give us the strength to raise up the next generation of those who are fearless in their faith, fearless in obedience, and fearless in completing their destinies God has for them. Thank you, everyone.